What is up, YouTube fam? We've got a little disc recommendation video for you, and it's not one, it's not two, it's not three, it's not four, it's five. My top 5 favorite discs for beginners. Hope you guys are ready for a good time. Before we dive in, we gotta ask, how you doing today, Joseph? Are you having a good one? Also, happy birthday to my nephew. His birthday was a little over a week ago. So, Joseph, this one's for you.
So catch me if I fall.
So obviously we are a beginner focused channel here. We want to help beginners improve one stroke at a time. One of the ways we do this is over in the Birdie fam, where there's Discord and discussion amongst people trying to improve together. But often when it comes to getting out there and playing the game, having the wrong tools can actually set you up for failure before you even begin trying to get out there on the course. So I wanted to put together 5 discs that I recommend quite often. In fact, these are probably some of my 5 most recommended discs. I would say there's probably one disc that's not on this list that I end up recommending a lot. It's a pig. I'll just go ahead and let you know. A pig's not on this list because a pig is near and dear to my heart. But just wait for next week, because But I've got 5 discs here. It's actually 2 mid-ranges, 2 putters, and a fairway driver. So I think these are 5 discs that if I were setting a beginner up, and it's funny because actually at the day that I'm filming this, we were asking a friend who's visiting town if he wanted to come join, and I literally was just going to hand him these 5 discs and be like, here you go. If you just had these 5, you would have a rounded out bag ready to crush while you're out there on the course. So let's talk about what we got here. We're gonna play a few holes and talk about why I recommend these 5 discs more than anyone else when it comes to beginner play. Of course, obviously, if you got disc suggestions, feel free to put them down below. All right, hole 1 for the video comes in. It's 220 feet, but it's uphill the whole way. And our first disc that we're recommending is the Discmania Origin. Flight number's on the screen. It's a 5.5 -1.1. And this is an incredibly straight flyer. Now, for people with a little more arm speed, as you get better, it's going to evolve into a disc that you throw on hyzer, which is where essentially the outside edge of the disc is down. On a backhand, that means it looks like this. And on a forehand, a hyzer, outside edge is down. And hyzer, it's the opposite. Outside edge is up, outside edge is up. When you are more experienced, you're gonna throw this thing on hyzer and it's gonna stand up to flat and ride straight. But if you're a newer player, or maybe you don't have huge arm speed, this disc is actually gonna go pretty straight, and it may even still get that easy stand up for you, but then it's gonna fall back into the flight that you put it on. This is not like a knock on him in the same breath, but partially why this ended up on the list is I think of my dear friend Jason, who throws his Origin in a straight flight that he knows he can hold it really straight and it's going to just fall dead straight for him. It's never going to turn all the way over for him unless he throws it on that anhyzer with the outside edge disc up. Even if he throws on a lot of hyzer, it still isn't going to like fade out super far for him. It's just a really straight flying disc. And so we're going to use it today and try to throw it into that big gap up to the right, pretty nose up, and let it hopefully just fall back to the side. So you can see it stood up and it just drops. It just drops. This is such a beautiful flyer. And for you, if you're an absolute beginner, like I said, it's for a right-handed player, it's gonna come out and it's gonna fall to the left, but it's a disc that can grow with you. Lots of the discs on here can grow with you, but I would say the Origin will probably be, I don't know, they kind of all grow with you. There's probably one. There's probably one that I would say you will use a lot less than the others. Now, I had a couple criteria for this list. One of them was I wanted the disc that will grow with you in terms of they're going to have use for you as a beginner, but they're also going to have some other implications that you can use later. Like I said, these 2 discs in particular, I think a lot of folks are going to be like, well, they don't really grow with me. But one of these was literally straight out of my bag, and the other is honestly not in the bag just simply because I almost always give these away as soon as they enter my possession. If you catch me like 2 months from now, there is a 0% chance that I still own this one. All right, next up is one that we have not talked about on the channel for a long time, but y'all, if you're an OG watcher back when we had hair, not just hair, we had long hair. Yeah, if you're looking for a wild trip, go back and watch some of those videos. But that is the AviarX3 by Innova Champion Discs. This was the first overstable putt and approach disc that I ever found when it came to the game. Now, when we say overstable, we have to understand there's overstable discs and understable discs. When you throw a disc, there's a certain amount of spin that you're putting on the disc that makes a disc want to fly a certain way. when I throw a right hand backhand like so, it's spinning the disc in a way that makes it want to go to the left. An overstable disc is going to lean into that even more, which can make it somewhat reliable. An understable disc actually wants to do the opposite and go that way. That's why a disc like the Origin that we just threw is neutral or right in the middle towards the understable side. So that's how when you throw it with the outside edge of the disc down, really when you put that outside edge, it makes it even want to go further in the direction that it's leaning. It stands up a little bit because the disc is wanting to move to the right, but I've thrown it in such a way to make it want to go to the left, and that internal battle is going to cause it to stand up and get extra distance. Now, an overstable putt and approach disc is something that is so classic in so many people's bags. The Zone, the Pig that we talked about. These are all phenomenal flyers, but they're all pretty overstable. The AviarX3 was my first ever overstable putt and approach disc that I found, and why this disc can be super helpful even for beginners is that a lot of times when you throw discs, they're gonna go out and they're gonna hyzer out, or they're gonna fall into whatever flight path you put them on. Now some of these, let's say for this orange guy, if you actually throw it on anhyzer, it doesn't have a lot of fight to want to fight out of it, so it's just going to move super far to the right, which can be incredibly frustrating. Whereas this disc is going to lean into that every single time. So if you have a shorter shot, instead of having to give up strokes, you can just throw it out wide and know that it's going to crash back every time. Take this hole, for instance, it's 186 feet. You have that silver basket tucked in the woods. I'm going to throw it on forehand, which for a right-handed forehand player means that it wants to go to the right, and then it's overstable. And so because of that, I'm going to put it on hyzer, overstable. So everything I'm doing is pushing this disc to make it want to go to the right. And I can put it out really wide and then watch as it just fights its way down the hill. Now, as an example, let's say I take that Origin and I try to throw it the exact same way. You can see it stood up really straight and then pushed really straight. So it actually got a lot of extra distance that I wasn't necessarily accounting for. If I go even more understable than the Origin, you can see that one even turns to the left a little bit. That's what makes the AviarX3 so phenomenal, is that it leans into the angle you put it on, so you can reliably, I couldn't have hung it too wide because everything in that disc wanted to make it move to the right. And knowing where a disc is gonna go is so essential to finding success in disc golf. Now, when it comes to putting in disc golf, you're gonna be throwing a different motion than you did per se with, let's say, even a forehand or a backhand. It's gonna look a little bit more like a cornhole toss or a pitch of sorts. And when we're doing that, we traditionally want to use putters, which are going to have that more rounded edge, just because they're not going to want to fight out as hard, because when we're throwing these, the bigger rim discs, the drivers, the fairway drivers, are designed to cut through the air, but that means they also need more spin and power in order to get them to fly correctly. So putters are traditionally the way to go when it comes to, surprisingly, putting, because you can give them a little bit of pop, and as you can see, I'm not giving like a full throw there, and they still fly straight. Now, the AviarX3 is an overstable putt and approach disc. So you can see there, I tried to throw it somewhat the exact same way, but because it wants to lean into that flight a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily suggest trying to putt with an AviarX3, which is why we have another putter on here, and that is the Latitude 64 Pure. Now, unlike in golf, where a putter you basically only use on the green, or when you're doing sort of a bump and run, but even then you probably use, I don't know, like a 9-iron or a pitching wedge. The putters in disc golf actually can be thrown off the tee box as well. There are no rules about when you can throw what. You could putt with drivers if you wanted to. But these act as much more like wedges, or yeah, I would say wedges is probably the best comparison for when you're trying to throw it out there. Now, what makes the Pure really great is that this is one of the most popular putters in disc golf, and it comes in a variety of plastics. This is a base plastic, which actually means it's cheaper in terms of production, so you can buy a lot of them, but it makes it less durable. So as discs are thrown, they're gonna season in and have a little bit of different flight characteristics. You can see I've had this Pure for quite some time. And so because of that, it's kind of chiseled in and there's some chunks missing out of it. So that's going to affect the flight of it. A premium plastic disc, like let's say the AviarX3, these are both putters. As you can see, they have that rounded rim, but they're going to fly differently because of the shape of the rim. There are people out there who putt with premium plastic, but most people tend to putt with base plastic when it comes to their putting putters. And I think a base plastic pure is really cool and a phenomenal disc to add to your collection because you can putt with it. But Dan's Disc Golf is a YouTube channel that you may find as a beginner, and he actually putted with pures for a really long time. Man was lethal with his pures. And if you really like the flight of your base plastic pure, you can pick up a premium plastic pure that'll have a little bit different of a flight. That's the tricky part about these, is that the plastic does change the flight characteristics. So we're gonna see if we can't pump this down here to that silver basket that's right ahead. Once again, I love these beginner-friendly discs because you could see how much hyzer I put that disc on. I put it on so much to start, which means that I was wanting to push it left. But because it's understable, it fought in and rode really straight. This is why these discs are so fun for beginners, is because of their natural tendency to want to create more distance for you. And that was me. You can see there's wind, like the trees are moving. It's not like I'm throwing in completely calm conditions. That's one of the drawbacks of these understable discs, is that the wind picks up. But if you learn to throw appropriately, which hopefully this channel and other educational channels out there will help you with, you can still crush with these. So our next fairway driver is the Ozone. The Ozone is released by Panda Disc Golf, which is probably one of the newest manufacturers on the disc golf scene. And they are trying to make 100% recycled discs. So this disc made entirely out of other recycled discs, which is super cool. This basket is so far away. It's a country mile away. In fact, I'm pretty sure because of how tucked it is, this hole actually plays as a par 4. But one of the beauties of fairway drivers is that we have a little bit of wind, and this is designed to cut through the wind. Now, based on the flight numbers, that third number is the turn, which is its desire to lean against what I am throwing. So far, what we had on the video so far, this is the most understable disc because it goes from +1 all the way to negative, I believe, 5 is the flippiest disc, or the most understable disc that's out there. Flippiest is something you'll hear in terminology. So being a -2, that means we can throw it on a little bit more hyzer and it should stand up for us. But because of this wind, I would want to maybe lean on a little more hyzer, but I actually am okay if it moves pretty far to the right. So I'm going to try to throw it on a baby amount of hyzer and get it to move to the right because there's so much open space over there to the right. Let's see what we can do. Try not to throw it straight into these trees. So you can see that nice drift to the right, which is phenomenal. Exactly what we're looking for. Starts on hyzer, stands up, moves to the right. Understable discs want to give you more distance. Now, if you're a newer player, you're probably gonna have to throw it pretty flat or maybe a little bit of anhyzer in order to get that right movement out of it. Another option that a lot of people are gonna suggest is the diamond. The diamond is even flippier than the disc that I just threw. And if you threw it on that anhyzer line, it would burn into the ground. So diamonds can be very hit or miss for people, depending on what your natural choice of throwing angle is. If you come from a Frisbee background, you're naturally gonna be throwing down here. If you don't, most people end up coming from up here. Obviously, it's up to you. But personally, I love the Ozone, and I think the Ozone fits more people's games than the Diamond do. But the Diamond, phenomenal choice as well. I know there's gonna be people suggesting in the comments, and because I already had the Pure on here, I'm also trying to represent a couple more disc manufacturers, but great choices regardless. I also wanted to showcase this hole because not all holes are simply just par 3s. Lots of holes are par 3s. In fact, I would say most holes in disc golf are par 3s, but it's not always just chuck your disc out there, putt, close out the hole. That happens when you get better in disc golf, but as you're learning, you may have an opportunity like this where it's a par 4, where I don't necessarily want to grab that super fast disc and throw it again, because if I do that, this faster disc has a chance to hit the ground and skip. So I gotta be thinking about what it's gonna do when it hits the ground. And like I said, those faster discs need more room to be able to go and get going. So on these softer shots, they're less reliable. That's where the AviarX3 is gonna shine, because as you can see, the shape that I need is to move from this right side to the left side. So instead of a forehand like I threw on the hole where we threw this off the tee, I'm gonna be able to throw it on backhand, meaning that the backhand spin makes it wanna go left for right-handed players, as well as it being overstable. And I'm gonna put it on a little hyzer. And the wind said, hey, you know that teaching point you were gonna make? What if I just, what if I didn't? There we go. A little better with the Pure. Now, I know folks who will argue that a beginner list shouldn't have an overstable putt approach disc on it. And honestly, that's why I went with the AviarX3. Because why I moved away from the AviarX3 is that I found after about 250 feet that it lost its stability to a major level. And I think for a beginner, grabbing something like a Zone or even a Pig which are both overstable, can be a little inhibiting early on in order to get some distance out of it if you fall in love with that disc. So the AviarX3 gives you the reliability of an overstable putt and approach disc. That was difficult. Without being so crazy overstable that it like creates bad habits. Now our last disc is going to create and demonstrate a problem. If you're a lefty, most disc golf holes are built for right-handed people. So you're gonna find that you want discs that move off to the left. And like we talked about, if you're a lefty, when you're throwing the normal backhand, the spin you're putting on it's gonna make it wanna go to the right. So what happens if I want a disc to move to the right? For instance, this hole, it's only about 150 feet, but it's uphill, so it's gonna play pretty close to 200 feet. And me stepping up and throwing, if I have a baseball background, softball background, whatever it may be, I can grab this overstable putt and approach disc, which once again, reliably wants to follow the flight that I put it on. And it's gonna fade right on back, and I'm within the circle I'm putting. But what if I don't have that sidearm? What if I don't have that background? Maybe that hurts my elbow, whatever it may be. I want discs that are gonna go to the right. And that's where this is really gonna shine, which is the MVP Uplink. And you can see that it has -3 turn, that third number, -3 turn. So it really wants to lean into that. So if I throw it on hyzer, as we saw, with that outside of the edge of the disc down, it's gonna stand up and go really straight. I demonstrated this was the forehand on the second hole of the video, where it stood all the way up and even actually moved a little bit. Here, what I like about having this as an option is that if I have a hole that needs to go the opposite direction of what it seems like everything's doing, I can put it out on that anhyzer angle with the outside of the edge of the disc up and pull it over like so. Pulled it a little or two inside, but it definitely was moving on that left to right way the whole time. And the other discs here would most likely want to necessarily fight out of that. The pure, maybe not so much because it's slower. But yeah, you can see that they kind of stop moving to the right and then they settle. So that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. I'm sure once again, there are so many discs out there that I didn't mention that are pretty tried and true classics. The Diamond's one that came up, the Proxy by Axiom Discs. Innova's got a whole lineup of them. The Mako 3, fantastic beginner friendly disc. Discraft Meteor, Discraft Soul, Discmania FD. So many options and you guys are gonna be well aware of what they are, but that's once again, we want the comment section to come in clutch to help it out. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're a beginner, welcome to the sport. We're so glad you're here at the Robbie C channel. We're here for beginners, always will be, and hopefully you'll find some other videos helpful. Also, if you are not necessarily a beginner, you're still hanging around, feel free to link some videos and say some videos that really helped your game that you would suggest checking out. That way people can just use this as a nice refresher. Maybe this is, oh, you're gonna go play your first round of disc golf, check this out. Or you're taking someone and you actually build this bag. I would highly suggest, if you're someone who often introduces people to disc golf, build this bag yourself and then just keep it in the car. Keep it in a nice little satchel. You can buy like a $10 lunchbox at Walmart. These will all fit in there. And then you just have a beginner friendly bag ready to go, which is definitely something I would encourage you to do. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to see more videos, obviously, you know what YouTube buttons to hit and do your thing. I'm not going to say it because I feel cheesy when I do. Anyways, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're going to leave you with the bird.